We love you and thank you for being a treasured member of our Revolution Radio family. From all of us to all of you, have a happy and safe holiday season, and let's make this new year a success once again together. Thank you.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Well, we're back. This is L.B. Bork with People's Awareness Coalition. This is America's Road Home. The Ultimate Remedy is my show. Hopefully we'll be expanding into 6 different hosts with 6 different days eventually. That was my goal for the PAC broadcast team. Each of us will be talking about how to change things to the way they should be, back to the non-Marxist system, and teach people how to handle their lives under non-Marxism. like I came up with lately, I came up with a new saying that men work, communists have jobs. All this women workforce and all this, what's transpired over the past 100 years, it's all Marxism. And, it's, I don't know, you have to sit back and look at it. Is it really benefiting anyone? That's why they have to, neutralize the genders and all this. Basically, the synagogue is Satan. And I'm not going to go into the details of that. Just wants a bunch of human resources so they can profit off them and manipulate them. And that's what my research has brought me to. That's what the truth is. And of course, these same people want to control all natural resources. And these are 2 terms that have come about, in the last 100 years, human and natural resources. And basically, it's all tied to Marxism. They declared war on the world back in 1848 with the Communist Manifesto. And ever since then, it's been a Marxist program. So the New World Order is grounded in Marxism. There's no doubt about it. All planks of the Communist Manifesto are applied in America. And, a lot of people don't understand it, don't want to see it, but... For example,
they embrace it lovingly anyway.
Yeah, they do, because if you're born in a box and trained that way, just like a trained dog. I have another saying that people are like dogs. They too can be taught neat tricks, and that's all they've done has been trained, just like a dog. And that's what they believe. And is it good? I don't think so. They're going through tax reform right now. Supposedly they're going to sign this new tax legislation into existence, but it's still income tax, which is part of the Communist Manifesto. They're not changing anything. They're just adjusting things. It's still Marxism. Everything's been played out by the rule book, the Marxist rule book. So. It's just the ebb and flow of the NWO, which is world communism. People like Lindsey Williams has even spoke against it. He's come out. I've heard him on the air saying, my elitist friend said they're not implementing communism. Yeah, whatever, Lindsey. He's one of the first guys I went to listen to back in 93 or whenever it was I got into this. And I didn't like the guy to begin with. And, he was cropping up all over the place. He still does interviews. And I'm thinking, this guy's nothing but a New World Order shill. He goes by a pastor, which is just nonsense. It's to hook the Christian crowd, but he's
it's
nothing.
funny.
He's nothing but a Marxist.
I heard him in 08 as well, or 07 perhaps, and there was something. If the people are running the New World Order, right, are talking to him, and they know that he's talking to us about what they're doing, it doesn't make sense that they're not feeding him what they want him to tell us.
He's just a messenger,
Yeah.
And it's just obvious. I'm glad you saw the same thing.
Yeah.
That I saw, but everyone out in this, if you're on the internet listening to people talk about whatever on YouTube, and there's probably a 90% chance they're either useful idiots or operatives.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. Like I said in the last hour, and I've been saying for years that PAC should take off, but it doesn't because these guys have more money, and they have a lot of operations in place that distract people. And like John said last hour, if you're not discerning, you're not going to pick up on it.
No.
PAC is all about truth. It's not about theories. It's about principles of law. And no one's denounced anything in my book. Well, they denounce it, but they don't accurately defeat it or argue against it. Things in my book and my papers. All these operatives say, "Oh, Bork's book is wrong." Well, prove it. They can't. This is based on truth and fact. I was the first one to come out that voting's a crime. It says it right in section 2 of the 14th Amendment. It's a crime to vote. But the language is so tricky, stealthily done. And if you don't know law and don't know grammar whatsoever, like I was talking about last hour, if you don't know the English language, in regard to the Constitution or otherwise, you don't know what's going on.
No.
Speaking of disinformation programs, recently I just kind of realized that this all cap letter name, it's just a bunch of nonsense, because we're dealing with private law is the problem. The 14th Amendment created a private law system. They say it's public law, but it's really private. Everything with the Constitution is private law. It's a treaty, and treaties in international law are considered private law, international law. So the Constitution itself invokes private international law systems or contracts or treaties or compacts, agreements, whatever word you want to give it. You said last hour, John, contract makes the law. So they can call it whatever they want. And this maritime law is a bunch of nonsense. We're not under maritime law. It's just a private law system. You can do anything you want with a private law system. You make your own rules, and that's what they've done. It might mock maritime law, some of the things people are seeing, but it's not maritime law. That's another misnomer. But this all cap name, I was going to say that the Roman alphabet was all caps. And it's just saying that the all cap name is saying, in fact, that you're under Roman civil law. That's all that is. And you're either subject to that law, a person that's, under that system, or you're not. So this arguing that isn't going to get you anywhere because it's just a symptom of the problem. And that's why so many people lose in court. Basically my goal was to be left alone and stay out of the courts. Again, there's a disinformation agent on Sunday nights here on Freedom Slips that is preaching citizenship and go into the court system. And there's a section in my book that I talk about the belligerent claimant in person being, if you're a U.S. citizen, you can claim you're a citizen or a state citizen even, arguing the 14th Amendment. But if you're going into court, you're doing things wrong in the first place. You shouldn't be in court. And if you're claiming to be a citizen, you're saying, I'm subject to all the law, 14th Amendment or otherwise. And there was problems with the civil law system even prior to the 14th Amendment. So it's just stupid to think that, you're going to get away with stuff. But there's several problems with the citizenship stance because, again, you're presumed to be subject to all the state law and all municipal law, which includes the states or municipalities. They always were. These people that are going around saying the United States is a corporation, well, it always was. That's how the Roman civil law system or the Roman law system works. That's how this whole state system's set up. And one thing I recognized in even Vattel's Law of Nations, he didn't call people of a nation nationals. He said they're citizens. That sets up the principle that the state is a municipality and you're subject to the laws. That's where the conspiracy started. And it's all private law. It's all, it's integrated into the constitutional system as they set it up. But the point is, Republican freedom and being a citizen is like black and white. They're two different things. And of course, they wanted people participating in state elections and things, and you had to be a citizen to do that. But like I said, Republican freedom, as Justice Black talked about, and being a state citizen are two different things. And you got to be careful who you're listening to.
Yeah, you mentioned last hour that people 150 years ago had much more education in terms of who they were and what their relationship was to the government, and that's true. As it turns out, anyone who could afford books had at least two. And they had the Bible, and they had Law Dictionary, either Blackstone's commentaries or its equivalent. And so those were the things that they needed to know, and they knew them, and they existed, in a free state.
Yeah, free republic.
Yeah,
that is better terminology.
Well, I was actually meaning a condition of freedom.
Conditions, state or status of condition, or the state of condition. Yes.
Yeah.
But there was obviously some poor people that didn't have that luxury. But I think the general population was a little more in tune with the law.
Yeah. Well, and
was it Rooster Cogburn? That movie was originally with John Wayne. They redid it recently. I think that's the movie. But there was a girl in that movie. The remake is what I saw and remember most recently. But she knew law better than some of the lawyers. And she was like 14 years old or something like that. And I imagine she was self-taught or whatever, or her parents taught her. That's why I keep saying, don't blame the government. If you're a socialist and want to blame the government for your problems, it's your dad's fault or your grandfather's fault. Go blame them. They bought into the socialist system, and if you're going to rely on the government to teach you, well, I guess that's a bad mistake or a big mistake.
Yeah,
it's your fault. Don't blame the government. You're a socialist. You depended on your socialist government, Marxist government, to teach you. And guess what? They're not teaching you law. They don't want you to know it so they can jack you around.
Right.
Simple as that,
Yeah, and they want you to think that law is so complex that only a certain kind of priesthood can know it.
Right.
Which is ridiculous.
It's not that difficult, really.
It's not. No. The basic
once
precepts,
you understand, the English language is trickery. I was talking to that woman that called today from Oregon. She agreed that the English language is pretty deceptive in its own way. It's made up of parts, like resident. That's a trick word, and I defined it in one of my papers. It's res means thing in law, and the second part of that is identity. The identity of the thing. So they're treating people as things, and so they can be regulated under international law, or the 14th Amendment system, which is international law. It's private international law, and as things and not men and women.
Well,
so some of this straw man stuff that floats around has some air of truth to it, but these people are just in whimsical la la land, and they're not explaining things properly, so a court can recognize it. It's the problems with this nonsense that floats around the movement. Anyway, go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Well, what I was going to say was that it fits into the institutes of Roman law. When you understand what civil law is, it comes from Roman law, obviously,
sure.
And so. And they distinguish private law from public law. The public law is about people over people. Private law is people over things. Mm-hmm. So to be a resident is to be a thing, and therefore falls under private law. It's people over things.
Yeah. Right. Did you say you got Soames Institutes of
I did.
Roman
Yes,
law?
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That's a great book. That's what opened my eyes, because there's these Masons or these secret societies, these judges, or what'd you call them? Clique or cult or something. The last hour at the, they keep all these secrets, even in the law system. In these law dictionaries, it's hard to determine what they're talking about, because it is kind of cryptic. And once you understand all this, it's not that difficult. But Soames' book, who is a German law professor, once I started reading that book, my eyes opened and the fog lifted.
Yeah.
So there is some truth to the deception in the law system, and these lawyers don't even know about it. I had a lawyer, I don't know if he's lying or just stupid or what, but he says, well, that was written by a German law professor, that book. It doesn't apply in the United States. And I go, you're joking, right? Are you that stupid? Or are you that stupid, really? So I don't know if he was trying to, cover his trade, or, lawyers are liars anyway, attorneys. That's what a turn means. It means to turn over property, or turn things over to another person. So attorneys are notorious for lying to you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I mentioned we were going to talk about PAC structure this hour.
Oh, there we go.
Let me just preempt it by saying PAC is People's Awareness Coalition. When I formed the coalition, it was meant to be a bunch of people that were, nationals of the states and had lawful status, not the 14th Amendment status. Of course, there's different ideas with people out there. Some people think state citizenship's the way to go, but there is no state citizenship. And as I've written in a paper and in my book, it's a legal fiction. It's something that can be engaged, and it's a trick to get you tricked into civil law, period, post or, pre-14th Amendment aspects. So that's a naughty word, citizen. It means you're going to be controlled by private law, basically. And, like I said, I've written extensively about that. Citizen as a legal fiction. It's a presumption set within the system to make you subject to all municipal law, be it state, federal, or, local even, county laws. Because they're all, corporations, and they always have been. It's the nature of the system. So, where was I going with that? I was talking about state nationals. Yeah, the People's Awareness Coalition. The coalition is made up of lawful nationals. The de facto nationals, which are rebelling against the Republic, are politically attached to the 14th Amendment system via, the mandates or the stipulations in the 14th Amendment. They're willful participants. And again, if you're not with PAC, you're dividing and conquering. So I don't care what you believe or think. If you're not with PAC, you're with the Marxist, based on good and evil. Two different sides, basically is what it boils down to. You're dividing based on the rule of divide and conquer is used by the adversary, or the enemy, if you want to call him the enemy, to win over. So you're a useful idiot by siding with these other, your other ideas. If you're not with PAC, you're with the New World Order by default. That's the way it works. So anyway, yeah, after a while I found out, I don't know if people are scared or confused, but back in about 2008, I formed the PAC Alliance, which is people that want to help us educate everyone, and haven't taken the time or can't for whatever reason. There's a bunch of reasons I don't see why. The reason people don't do it is because there's no one working together. Everyone's kind of in limbo land, not well, they're in la la land sometimes too. But the PAC Alliance is the lawful nationals working with the people that are still haven't corrected their status or their nationalities. So anyway, that's the basis, or the when you hear PAC Alliance, that's the difference between the PAC, which is a coalition, People's Awareness Coalition, which basically had to do with the awareness of the two political systems, the lawful pre-14th Amendment system and the unlawful one under the 14th Amendment. We can say it was unlawful for many reasons. It wasn't lawfully instituted. It was done by force by the Civil War, creating bloodshed and war. It was unlawful what they did, Lincoln's War, whatever. Mm. So that's why it's unlawful, and it has to be totally voluntary. And there's two foundations or bases for voluntary participation. Voting's the main one. They're the criminals. It says right in Section 2 that voting's a crime, and that means a criminal act of rebellion against the lawful system. And that's or taking benefits or remaining silent. That's the three stipulations basically, which are laid out, which suck you into the system. And not correcting your nationality, that's just a black and white remedy. That's why I say that what we're doing is the ultimate remedy to get on the other side of the political fence. So you're not assumed to be with the criminals or rebels against the Republic and with the Marxists.
It's important to note that after the Civil War, so-called, there were no people from the South who were tried for treason or rebellion. True. Because in fact it never took place.
No, they loosely called it a rebellion.
Right.
But it wasn't. That's not a lawful term. The Supreme Court actually ruled against it in the Jefferson Davis case. That they said, they dropped the case because if they were to rule upon it, they would let the cat out of the bag that the Civil War was unlawful. So they kind of brushed it under the carpet.
That's right, and that's why they didn't try anybody for it, because they knew they'd lose.
Right.
So, but today, you try to secede as a U.S. citizen, try to take a state out of the union, you're going to be in for, I think, some pretty harsh consequences there.
Well, see, you have all these U.S. citizens living in these countries called the states now, and they're not going to want to give up their benefits. So the only way to do this is, education. That's what PAC's about. It was always about constitutional education and political awareness. That's what the awareness part of PAC is. The conspiracy against what's going on or what's involved. The political conspiracy and the players was the awareness part. And, it's funny, like that there's a lot of people that dwell and live for the conspiracy end. And really it's a distraction. I talk about the conspiracies in my book, but really centered on law because that's how we're controlled. And, these conspiracy things, you can talk about those till the cows come home and not really get anywhere. But the law is solid and easily proven. So,
well, I think it's all about entertainment, right? I mean, people are conditioned to be entertained.
Well, sure.
And to be passive. So, conspiracy theories are great because there are things that you can think about and like toys in your hand, turn them over and look at, right? You can do research on them and stuff, but they don't get you anywhere. It ends up being, because what are you going to do with it in the end, right? Nothing.
Nothing. That's what the adversary wants. They want us doing nothing. So they put these people out talking about conspiracies like Alex Jones.
Yeah.
He has no remedy. He's just all fear and fear mongering. And he tells some truth. Big deal. People have asked me to be on his show or asked him to have me on his show, and he turns them down. He says, I know all about that stuff. Mm. And that's your red flag that he's part of them.
Yeah.
So, the conspiracy issues are just a distraction. They're important, but law is how we're controlled.
Yeah, it's actually the mechanism at work that you can not only play with, right, in terms of understanding, look at, discover how it works, but then you can use it to do something. And when you're doing something or not doing something with this tool called law. So it's harder to actually stand by on the sidelines and like a spectator and be entertained, particularly if you're wanting to see a result of some kind. It's what's so compelling about PAC itself and the members that are involved, because they're all out there doing something about this, studying it and then enacting the remedy for themselves and helping other people do it for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, you can play the gray area, and I know that the Bible talks about the gray area. That the devil, is loves to deal in the gray area, and that's what the 14th Amendment created. Because if they really wanted to, institute or form this Marxist system lawfully, they would have had people vote on it, for one thing, and implement it and do away with the other Constitution or the original Constitution, but they didn't. They put another layer on top of it, which creates a gray area. And if you want to search the internet for a dual system of law, I wrote a paper that deals with that issue. There's a dual system of law that goes on. There's a de jure and a de facto, which means before and after 14th Amendment principles. So, that's PACandlaw.us.
.us/.
.us. Make sure it's .us.
Yeah, .us
Yeah.
/ pool
Dual.
dual.
Yeah. But if you put in the search engine, if you put PAC, if you want to search anything for PAC, if you heard about a paper like I mentioned, Citizen is a legal fiction, just put Citizen legal fiction and PAC, it'll pull up on the search engines.
Yeah.
So use that PAC as a tool to do searches with, and you'll find the white papers, which are pretty hard to find on the websites. They're hidden intentionally. So people have to work for it because freedom's not free. You have to work for freedom. So I've done that intentionally. People complain about it, but it's the way it is. If you're not going to purchase the book and get a step-by-step, tutoring on what's transpired, and you'd rather go on YouTube and listen to disinformation, you're just hurting everyone. That's that gray area. It deals with the gray area. It's just PAC eliminates the gray area. It's plus and minus, positive, negative, good, evil. Right, wrong. That's what the difference is. There's no arguing what we're talking about. All there is to argue is if you like being Satanist or Marxist or with what God planned is what Jesus the Christ taught, and of course the Bible goes over. So, the New Age is all about the synagogue of Satan. It's talked about in the Bible too.
An extension of the gray area from that is constructed from the 14th Amendment is the whole moral relativism that we're stuck in as a kind of social construct today throughout the world, pretty much, and that really has prevented people from being able to think for themselves, to make discernment, because everything's relative, and it's the best way, it seems to me, that the folks in charge, so to speak, have been able to get people lost and unfocused and ununified, disunified, whatever.
Right.
And as you say, PAC says you can't walk the fence because you're either lost or you're going to get in trouble. Because when they start applying the black and white to you, you need to be on one side or the other.
Right.
Right.
The people skate by sometimes just because.
Well, they're lucky.
I call it garbage wins, is what I call them. But they win because not of a real principle of law, but because the court doesn't have time to deal with it. And of course, municipalities these days are all about the money. So it cuts into their budget, and they don't want to mess with it. But it doesn't win anything. And that's why I talked about before these guys saying, "Oh, you don't have to do anything; just claim you're this." And when a problem arises, you can go to court and fight it. Well, there's this guy named Ainsworth that I've had battle with, and I used to work with him. Based on, he talked about the Civil War being a problem. We had that in common, but he would say, "Well, I just won my traffic case for not having a driver's license on appeal again, LB. You should really look at what we're doing." And I'm thinking, I have looked at what you're doing, John, and it's wrong. How about not getting hassled by the cops and not going to traffic court and being left alone? But you haven't listened to me. You're just another arrogant ass out there in this movement that thinks you got everything figured out.
Yeah, I actually heard him speak too.
Yeah.
A nice guy generally, but he's going after and he mentions the 14th Amendment as well.
No, he talks about state citizenship, and it's
well, no, I agree.
It's bad. It's just, I've written about it. Just what if you study a little bit and look at what I say, you can't deny that I'm right on this.
No, you're absolutely right about this. I'm
So,
not
anyway. And
No,
plus, he didn't have a remedy. His whole thing was the Reconstruction Amendments.
Yeah.
And that basically dealt with the South. Well, it doesn't give remedy to the post-14th Amendment states or any of the other states of the North.
Right.
My research does. So we parted ways based on, well, I don't want to tell you the story that I haven't talked to him since then. I called him on his bullshit and showed that he's a hypocrite and wrong. So we don't work together anymore.
Yeah, which is sad.
That was 10 years ago, But, the poison that he's pushing is still polluting the movement.
Yeah, it's not a holistic understanding.
Right. Anyway, I think I interrupted. You said you heard him speak or something?
Oh, yeah, no, I heard him speak maybe about 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago. And he, as I said, he talked about the 14th Amendment, but he was focused on its unlawful adoption, and he understands that everything is, or he presented at least the understanding that everything has been perverted since then, which is true. But again, as you say, the remedy is not presented, except to say, well, what we need to do is to, have it adjudicated in court, which won't happen because, as you said many times, the adjudication of the 14th Amendment, since it's been a matter of 150 years of customs and usage, is now a political question, not one of law. So,
well, it's a matter of law. It's a constitutional law. But if you're taking the benefits, like I said, of the system,
right?
My friend Joseph Roy, who I don't talk to because he's conspiring with this narcissistic guy on Sunday nights, that I endearingly call clown shoes because it's just a circus. What he's about. Joseph even, would, I forget what I was going to say about Joseph. He even told John Ainsworth he's wrong. And Joseph, of course, believes what he believes. But I know he's wrong on some things. Joseph hasn't studied international law. He knows, he's read history, which he's great at, and knows by reading case law. But my number one rule of how to study law is don't read case law, because you're not going to know what they're talking about if you don't know law.
Yeah, I had a
so getting proper ideas from case law, it's not going to happen. I use the dictum, Black, Justice Black said, his quote on Republican freedom, he talked about, how you can achieve it in a statement, but it really didn't have anything to do with the case being here or there, won or lost. It's just things they say that I look at as clues to what the truth is, but these guys that are looking at what they blather about, especially after the 14th Amendment, you don't know what they're talking about because there's dual system of law. They'll write it off they'll go on for 5 or 6 pages talking about something when they could have said it in one sentence.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to baffle you with bullshit to get you to believe what they're saying. So all these patriot types that are listening to these court cases don't have a clue what's going on.
No, and because what they've managed to do in the system that they've created here is to provide a color of common law, which is what's considered, I think, to be case law, but derived from the private law. So I was actually talking to a lawyer about a month ago who said to me that she, in the context that we were speaking, she said, "Oh yeah, well that's common law," and I said, "Well, no, that's the color of common law because really, it's a matter of private law from which this stems, right? It's a statutory law that that the state legislature produced, and now what you have is case law that stems from it. So you don't even know, unless you know the beginning of all of it, what type of law it is. If you're just studying case law, you have to know.
Yeah, they call common law case law, and that's just a misrepresentation.
It is.
And then, there's been cases, American jurisprudence that state that there's no such thing as federal common law, which is, basically the consolidation of cases of, the precedent that they serve. And that's kind of disappeared. That was a principle in the 60s, 1960s, but they're going deeper into their lies, so they've kind of done away with that. But they pulled it out of American jurisprudence. Something like I said, the 14th Amendment, the Supreme Court since 1868 has been talking out both sides of their mouth with this dual system. So they might say this in this case and break it in another case, and they use these principles in all these cases, depending on cases that were decided. But if you look at what American jurisprudence and jurors said, that there is no federal common law. So if anyone of these federal prosecutors are using case precedents, federal common law against you, I'd call it basically, I can't think. Shoot, I can't think of what I would. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. It's a miscarriage of justice, or it's a violation of due process, because as a paramount principle, there is no federal common law, so they can't use these cases against you, because the circumstances of your status might be different than the people in these other cases. But that's the problem with the 14th Amendment, fence walking, gray area. I mean, that's what I was going to say about Joseph Roy. He told me cases where people would go into court and say, "I'm not a U.S. citizen." And the prosecutor knew that they were a patriot type and going to be rambling about what they really didn't know about. And he told me they'd have their voter's registration there or something, Mm-hmm. And the prosecutor would say, "Judge, I have his voter registration. He's a voter. He's a citizen."
Oops.
So that just destroys their whole statement and makes them look not only stupid, but a liar. So that's why it's dangerous to listen to stuff on YouTube and getting half the story or the wrong story, or even listen to other people on, the station.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, we only have a few more minutes left. I mean, 15 minutes or so. So you wanted to really spend much of this time talking about what PAC is doing and things. And I think that one of the things that, we started to talk about the radio show here and the 5 or 6 segments each week. 5 or 6 segments each week.
Yeah, it'd be 6 now.
6.
Angry, who's going to be doing the second hour next year. We'll be handling family health. So,
well, see, that's great. So we have family health. We're trying to get we're trying to get someone to talk about homeschooling,
right,
and education. And I think there are a bunch of people, PAC folks, who are really interested in trying to put together a homeschool curriculum for law and history, which would be fantastic.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people use the Red Amendment as a teaching tool for their homeschoolers,
right?
Homeschooled children.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, there's I think we're looking for people who will talking to people who can talk about homesteading and
right. Yeah, local economy and state economy, because everyone talks about the money. I don't want to get off track from what you're trying to lay down here, but the problem is not the money. It's they've taken our economies away from us, all the way from our family economies to our state economies, or local economies to state economies. So that's what has to be built back up.
Yeah.
Of course, all our stuff's manufactured in China now, so that's why no one has any jobs. They've stolen our economies, and that's right. The problem.
Well, on the flip side, you can look at it maybe in a positive way, is that it provides an opportunity for state nationals to be able to do things and make things that can't or aren't being made locally, or produced or provide services, and so forth.
Right.
Because it's so the overhead for U.S. citizens to provide those services is huge, where it may not be so for state nationals.
Right.
So what we're trying to do here through PAC is, and its educational system, but through the coalition, is to reinvigorate local communities of people who are self-supporting and self-reliant, to rebuild these natural relationships for free markets and unity of customs and habits,
right?
Through which people can then, have develop a strong social culture among themselves and be self-governing.
Right, exactly.
Because the important thing about PAC is that whatever happens to the system, the greater system outside, that PAC and its members are strong enough together to fill the void, the power vacuum. At least that's the hope one day.
Right. One of our people sent off something on the Christian Pinot piece. It's The Hidden Faith of the Founding Fathers is the documentary that we were talking about. So yeah, just wanted to verify that. And again, if you want to learn about how these guys just patterned the American system after the Roman Republic and then the Roman Empire, you have to read Soames' Institutes of Roman Law.
Yeah, it's you can get. I think you can get a PDF version for free online, mm-hmm. but you can also have it privately one-off printed for yourself. I think it cost me $8.
Yeah, someone gave me a book. One of our someone I ran into back in 2001, and my copy came out of it was a convent or something up in northern Wisconsin, and the book was printed in 1892, I believe, and it hadn't even, the pages hadn't even been cut apart. No one ever read it. So, these nuns who are under Jesuit control didn't even read this thing.
Well, what use would they have it for it anyway?
No, I don't know. They're praying to Mary anyway, so.
Yeah.
Little dig at the Catholic Church there. Sorry.
So have we covered all the kind of all of the categories of subjects we want to we're growing the radio show into?
Yeah, I think so. For the most part, you can look on the PACalliance.us website, and it's under broadcast.
Yeah, there it is.
If you want to see the particulars, but that's in the works. And like John mentioned, we need more people and more experts at their fields. Like I said, this is the ultimate remedy. Part of America's Road Home is the PAC broadcast team. And we talk about going home, getting away from Uncle Karl Marx. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. And the whole world is under world communism. That's the plan. That is the New World Order. And, I know everyone doesn't have a clue what's really going on, but like I just said, it's all based on economies, and their family and local economies have been stolen, and they have to be gained back.
That's right. I mean, the first the early uses of the word economy referred to the family economies, didn't they?
Right. Yeah, it was laid out by Noah Webster. That's where I got the ideas. Well, I had these, the more you start researching, I can say everyone that comes to me with more pieces of the puzzle, it doesn't diminish what I've written about 20 years ago. It just adds. So that's why no one can defeat what I've written about, because it's right. It was correct in the first place. And all these things are just add to the building it even stronger. So,
yeah. Well, that and the idea that what your research is foundational.
PAC is foundational. That's what no one understands.
Yeah,
that we're the foundation for everything. I don't care what you believe, religion, everything. This is the foundation, because law controls us, and that's what PAC's about. Law, period.
Yeah.
Foundation. Which God or Creator is the ultimate foundation, but I'm talking about secular control. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know law, you don't know anything. So
what was that quote from William Penn?
Those who are not governed by God will be ruled by tyrants.
There it is. Right.
Something like that. Oh, that's a good way to end the show, I suppose. Thanks for joining me, John.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we'll do it again soon.
That was fun.
What we're going to do next week, I might have them replay one of the two shows we just did the last couple weeks. But anyway, thanks for listening in. We'll be here every Tuesday until that changes. Thank you, Revolution Radio, for having us. Good night.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
holiday message to our listeners. Revolution Radio is you. Thanks to your continuous support and participation, Revolution Radio will embark
To its 8th year. Yoo-hoo!
bigger and better than ever. You, the listeners, have made Revolution Radio what it is. The #1 commercial-free talk radio station on the web with nearly 24 hours of live programming, delivering directly to you the most cutting-edge information available. You, the listeners, have become some of our most popular radio hosts. You, the listeners, offer feedback that molds our programming to appeal to a worldwide audience. You, the listener, provide eyes on the ground, reporting about newsworthy events in your area, and you, the listener, are the lifeblood of this station. We love you, and thank you for being a treasured member of our Revolution Radio family. From all of us to all of you, have a happy and safe holiday season, and let's make this new year a success once again together. Thank you.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your